This large painting, measuring 240 by 166 centimeters, some 8 by 5 feet, is the Wild Hunt of Odin, painted in 1872 by the Norwegian artist Peter Nicolai Arbo. It depicts a wild Scandinavian folklore story about a terrifying hunt taking place during midwinter, where people on Earth that have not found a safe place to hide will be abducted. If one were to witness the wild hunt, the best case scenario was that that person would die, but it could also be the beginning of a larger catastrophe like a war or pandemic. Let's try to make sense of this scene by looking at some of the details. Among all the black horses we can see one white horse. Riding on top of it is the leader of the hunt, known as Sigurd Dragonslayer, at least according to the Norwegian version of this story. There are many variants of the story across Europe, and the name of this leader varies, but the leader is usually associated with the god Odin, who stands for a lot of things, including wisdom, healing, death, war, battle, sorcery, and frenzy. So we have Sigurd Dragonslayer as the leader in this Norwegian version of the story, wielding his sword. And next to him, leading the hunt, are two bare-breasted Valkyries, one holding a spear and the other a bow and arrow. The Valkyries are female figures who guide souls of the dead to the Valhalla, a large hall in the Asgard, which is the place where the Norse gods reside. And one of them is Odin, who presides over the Valhalla. Here are two non-naked versions of a Valkyrie, which Arbo painted in the years before the Wild Hunt of Odin. The other person standing out is the figure here, towering above the rest of the horde. This is the god Thor, wearing a crown and holding his devastating hammer Mjolnir. He is seated in a chariot pulled forward by his two goats, which are known in English as Teeth Bearer and Teeth Grinder. The participants in the Wild Hunt of Odin were gods, ghosts, the restless souls of the dead, and other special mythological characters. Except for the Valkyries, they all appear to be men on horses, carrying spears and other weapons. Peter Nicolai Arbo gives us a nice peek at them from the side, showing the menacing hordes in great detail, like this guy blowing a horn. In an earlier watercolor version by Arbo, which you can see here, the hunt is coming straight at us. And while this was just a preparatory piece, we can still recognize the Valkyries in the front and the presence of Thor in his chariot in the back. Similarly, Arbo made an earlier version of the painting in oil paint, in which a lot of elements of the most popular version are already recognizable. Returning to the main work, when looking at the earth below, we see a desolate landscape, lit by the moonlight. It looks as if the earth has already been scorched by a large fire, explaining the blackened landscape and the wafts of smoke in the background. If the horde would see anyone outside of their houses, they would certainly go after that person. And looking at the front of the horde, they seem to spot some potential victims. They already succeeded in capturing a couple of naked women, and these two guys pulling them up their horses are called berserkers, recognizable by the pelts over their heads. They are some kind of super fighters who, according to some stories, derive their strength from bears. Here you can see a darker image of the same painting. The details may not be as clear in this picture, but it provides an even eerier impression of how scary this hunt may feel. Surrounding the horde are several ravens. You can see several of them at the bottom, but also some over here. These ravens belong to Odin, the chief god in Norse mythology, and they provided Odin with information about what they see and hear in the world. And in the background we can see a bright fiery light, which is perhaps a sight of hell, the terrible afterlife, comparable with the ideas of hell in various modern religions, although some others have identified this as the warmth of the Asgard where the gods lived. This painting was particularly influenced by a 900-word poem from 1845 named Asgardsreien by the Norwegian writer Johann Sebastian Welhaven. One of the first sentences of the poem goes as follows: "Through the nightly air stampedes a train of frothing black horses." And it continues: "Rushing headlong comes the wild band. To support them they have only the clouds. They hasten over valleys, over meadows and moors, through the darkness and shadows. They pay it no heed. The traveler casts himself onto the ground in terror. Listen to the clamor. It's the Wild Hunt of Odin." And moving forward it goes: "The Wild Hunt of Asgard raids the county, whilst fall and winter at stormy nights. But it favors to travel at Yuletide. They feast with trolls and giants, they closely ride by meadow and path, and past the fearful nation. Then, take care, farmer, keep all in order, as the Wild Hunt of Asgard may visit your home." The poem continues by telling how the Wild Hunt visits a Christmas wedding party that is going on. "As through the air in the dark came a thunder, a howling horde on ferocious horses. It raced over woods to the wedding house, intended to visit the bloody performance. Then horns blew and an awesome noise from bells and riding gear resounded. Now it was close, it came over the hill. There was an outcry, the Wild Hunt of Asgard." If interested, I'll put a link to one of the English translations of the full poem in the description box below this video. There you will also find information on how to get daily art updates from me on social media. Arbo painted the Wild Hunt of Odin when he was in Paris, and it is the only work by him that contains some nudity, probably inspired by the masterpieces of colleagues like Alexandre Cabanel and Eugène Delacroix. Back in Norway, these French influences were also noted, and Arbo got quite some negative critique when he first exhibited the painting. Many details in the painting did not match with Norse mythology, and an art critic noted that this was more a fantasy painting made for the French market than a work that aligned with Norse mythology and people. But over time, this critique slowly went away, and nowadays this work is considered to be a unique masterpiece with a spectacular composition and dramatic lighting. Well, I hope you enjoyed this discussion of The Wild Hunt of Odin by Peter Nicolai Arbo. If you did, please hit that thumbs up button to support this video, and feel free to share it with whoever you may think is interested. As always, thanks for watching.